Hello users, and welcome to another episodic installation of Above It All. And today I'm going to talk about what Kyle Rittenhouse's classmates in school, because the guy was a kid, had to say about him after being contacted after he decided to act like a vigilante and kill protesters for no reason in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And this article is very enlightening. This is the kind of stuff that I think is really important to share the background. A lot of people, whenever a black man is killed by police, they will post like a mugshot and say like, "Oh look, you know, blah, blah," and then go like, "Wow, then I guess it must have been a justified shooting." Yet, whenever one of their right-wing terrorists decides to kill people, they try to hide their personal details as much as possible. Don't ever talk about them, because why would you? It's irrelevant. They're a hero. Well, I've got a few stories here that show that this guy is not a hero in any capacity, and if you do think that he is a hero, chances are you are an unhinged buffoon or a dullard. Pick and choose. Kyle Rittenhouse loved cops, guns, President Trump, and triggering the libs, according to some of his former classmates at Lakes Community High School in Lake County, Illinois. His clothes were often branded with pro-police slogans, and he carried a Blue Lives Matter phone case, one student said. Totally not cringe. Some of his classmates joked that he'd be a mass shooter one day. "I personally believe he went to Wisconsin with the intent to kill," said one former classmate who asked not to be identified out of fear for their safety. Which is honestly kind of pathetic on a societal lens, that you have to fear for your safety because you're accurately talking about someone you went to high school with. What a world we live in. While Rittenhouse was only enrolled at Lakes Community High School for the 2017 to 2018 academic year, he left an impression. Students reached by Vice News described him as short-tempered and easily offended. As with most right-wing snowflakes, they're emotional, they get triggered all the time. That's why their goal is to trigger the libs so much, because they're offended and perpetually like with their panties in a knot because everything around them in the world makes them angry. Like seeing black people in his school probably gave him like rage-inducing like trauma that he had to deal with in some capacity, which eventually he did. When he got mad or offended, he would always say he could fuck me up. But everyone would just laugh because he was like a 5'4" chubby freshman boy who we thought wasn't capable of harm, said Joe, who's a minor and asked that his full name not be used. Rittenhouse spent a lot of time out of school, which his classmates attributed to his involvement with the Grays Lake Police Department's Public Safety Cadet Program. Remember, everyone's like, "Oh, Blue Lives Matter. He was just a concerned kid. He was literally trained by police to shoot and then use that training to kill protesters." There is no like gray area here. This is getting more and more damning as time goes on. Part of a youth program for aspiring cops in Lake County. The Grays Lake Police Department confirmed Rittenhouse's involvement in the program, but weren't able to comment further about his involvement. The program added it was fully cooperating with the FBI and the Kenosha Police Department in their investigation. Oops, sorry, we trained a mass murderer. Our bad, right? Oops. Rittenhouse was also known as a ride-or-die Trump supporter. Keep in mind, this guy was like, 13 when Trump was elected? So, like, imagine being, like, a teenager and having, like, your formative years be, like, addicted to Trump's campaign. There are kids out there that are like that, and that's honestly horrifying and terrifying. If you said anything bad about Trump, he'd threaten you, Joe said. In January, Rittenhouse even traveled to Iowa, which I mentioned this in a video, where he had front row seats at a Trump rally, BuzzFeed reported. Kyle was the type of kid to wear a MAGA hat or other apparel just for attention or to trigger people, Joe added. Another one of Rittenhouse's classmates said he used to refer to the school located in a Chicago suburb as Libtard AF. Again, these are kids being raised by like Alex Jones, like kind of like Milo Yiannopoulos cringe culture in like 2016. These are kids that have their formative years where they learn what words mean, where they actually learn about the world around them. Those formative years are tainted by Steve Bannon's pet project. It's absolutely disgusting. Kyle was kind of shy from what I remember, but he was definitely in your face and pushed his views hella, they said, like one of those kids that liked triggering libtards. Again, whatever the fuck that means. Well, Rittenhouse's hometown of Antioch is more conservative. Trump won the town in 2016 with about 50% of the vote. The demographics of Lakes Community High School are a little different given its proximity to Chicago. He went to middle school with my little sister, and she said that everyone always thought of him to be a potential future shooter, said Joe, and so did I when I met him in high school. The school district superintendent who oversees Lake Community High School told the Chicago Tribune that it wasn't clear why Rittenhouse left school in 2018 or where he went afterwards. Public records show that his mother's address, where he lives, remained the same. Former classmates said they thought he switched to online learning and that he may have been bullied. This is where it gets good. Some of his former classmates have been circulating an old video from 3 years ago, which was shared with Vice News. It appears to show someone running up behind Rittenhouse, tripping him and pushing him to the ground. "What the fuck is your problem, little bitch?" Rittenhouse says, standing up. "Chill, Kyle," someone replies. Like, the idea that someone can get bullied and they're like, "I'll show you," and they go home and like look at Trump campaign like YouTube channels or whatever all day, like that's horrifying to me. But, you know, whatever. Obviously, of course, again, bullying is terrible. You never know if you're going to bully someone who's going to take out their rage on innocent protesters, you know. Who knows? In January 2017, before he enrolled in Lakes Community High School, his mother, Wendy Rittenhouse, a single mom who works as a nurse's assistant, filed a request for an order of protection against one of her son's classmates. She accused them of threatening to harm her son or insulting him by calling him dumb or stupid, according to the Chicago Tribune. She ultimately dropped the request. Oh no, someone called me dumb. I'm sorry, that sounds a little silly to me. Rittenhouse made no secret that he'd traveled to Kenosha on Tuesday. He posted on Snapchat about Blake, the father of 6, whose lawyer said he was shot by police while trying to break up a domestic dispute. Rittenhouse posted Blake's mugshot from a prior arrest with the caption, "Lol, he's innocent." Earlier, and again, this sounds like a typical Trump supporter. This is what you have to understand, and I'm going to get more into this later on today because there's been a lot more stuff involving Trump supporters and cringe, especially in Portland. But this is what you have to understand: it is a pipeline. When people in my YouTube comments go like, "Hoo-hoo, black man thug, hoo-hoo, white man hero," like that is giving an environment where 13, 14-year-olds look at that and they go like, "Wow, this is epic!" And then they turn into people like Kyle Rittenhouse 4 or 5 years later. It's disgusting. Earlier on Tuesday, Rittenhouse posted a video of himself cleaning graffiti off of a wall. And then later on, another very brief Snapchat showing the flashing lights of police vehicles and his rifle scope. Social media linked to Rittenhouse also showed his affinity for the Blue Lives Matter and Back the Blue movements, which in recent months has inspired the presence of pro-cop vigilante groups at civil rights protests. On Tuesday night, Rittenhouse joined up with a crew of pro-cop vigilantes and militiamen who had been standing guard by a gas station. He was shown on video palling around with police officers who thanked him for being there and gave him a bottle of water, even though it was after the 8 p.m. curfew. I covered this on my channel. The cops literally worked with these people, told them where they were best suited, gave them supplies, and then said, like, "Have a good night, y'all." The cops are complicit. The cops had a training program training this guy to kill. He went to go coordinate with other cops and then killed innocent people. Like, it's just ridiculous. Hours later, after a confrontation between protesters and militiamen, Rittenhouse opened fire, according to bystander video from the scene. First, he allegedly killed a protester by shooting him in the head. Then, he tried to run away while talking on the phone. "I've just killed someone," he said in a video captured on a cell phone. A crowd of protesters then chased Rittenhouse down the street, a scene captured from multiple angles on cell phone. He tripped, fell, and just as two protesters came toward him, he sat up, aimed, and opened fire. He appeared to shoot one person in the chest, killing them, and injured a second with a bullet to the arm. Again, a lot of right-wingers are just starting in the middle of this. Like, you know, like the sitcom thing, like, where you're in, like, a middle of, like, a classroom and you're naked, and then it goes like, freeze frame. No, so you're wondering how I got here, right? Now, the Trump scenario of that is, instead of wondering how they got here, they just start in the middle of the story, give you no context, and say, he's a hero! Because they're fucking stupid. They're dumb. These people are dullards. A crowd of protesters... Okay, I already read that. And injured a second with a bullet to the arm. Then Rittenhouse stood up and walked away in the direction of the armored police vehicles, which were approaching the scene in response to reports of gunfire. Video shows him with his hands up, rifle clearly displayed in apparent surrender. Police drove right past him. Kenosha County Sheriff David Beth later tried to defend police's inaction in situations that are half-straight. You have such incredible tunnel vision, he said. Rittenhouse then fled Kenosha and crossed the Illinois state line to Antioch, just 20 miles south. He was labeled a fugitive, arrested the following day, and charged with first-degree murder. So again, the reason I wanted to read and share this article is because this shows you that our youth are being corrupted by the Trump campaign and by alt-right neo-Nazi web pages to train them, and then the police are there, right? So the neo-Nazi web pages, 8chan, 4chan, the Trump campaign, convince them to love cops and hate black people. And then you've got police safety programs that offer them, anyone with little or minimal background checking whatsoever, free gun training, police training, and all this other shit. So this guy gets trained by Nazis in the Trump campaign to hate black people and to hate communists and to hate the libtards. And then he goes to his local police station and says, hey, can you train me how to kill people? And the cops are like, sure! And then the cops train him on how to shoot and how to kill people. And then he goes to another state and coordinates with another police department and then trains more, coordinates more, and then kills more protesters. You have to understand the pipeline. You have to understand how get from point A people travel to point B to point C and to eventually killing protesters, all right? This is important because this culture that we are living in, there are 12-year-olds right now who are being raised in this culture, and chances are, right, they're being radicalized by the things that they are seeing. We have to do our best to make sure that they are not radicalized by alt-right and neo-Nazi programs, because that is only going to lead to more serial killers like Kyle Rittenhouse. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there. There's a lot more stuff I'm going to talk about today.